All right, everybody. This week we're going to be talking about mobile design and development. In fact, we're going to be covering this for the next couple weeks. We're going to be working with a few different design frameworks. We're going to be taking a look at media queries, and we're also going to be taking a look at other mobile sites and critiquing those. So mobile is important because it's huge. In the reading below, you'll read a couple of posts about why mobile matters. And you'll see some pretty astonishing stats about mobile users worldwide. And the fact remains, and you guys probably all know just from your own personal use, that mobile is in fact where a lot of the web is going. Now, that's not to say there's not the need for desktop versions of websites will disappear. That's not the case at all. We're always going to be browsing the web from desktop devices or from laptops. But given how much mobile has penetrated markets, especially in the United States and Asia, and is also, in a lot of instances, the primary platform for the web in developing countries, it's really hard to ignore mobile. So when you're doing new web design, whether it be for yourself or for a client, you always want to be considering the mobile aspect of this design. Do I need to do some type of mobile work? Do I need to do some type of app? What's going to be the mobile component of our site? And really, there's three ways you can approach mobile. You can have dedicated mobile, and what dedicated is a primary mobile app. So this might be an app store application like the Apple or the Android app store. So these would be individual pieces of software that are written on their own. So the dedicated mobile sites typically stand alone from their online brother or from their desktop website brother. Dedicated could also mean a specific mobile website. So maybe like an whatever.com. So this might be, for instance, Twitter used to run a m.twitter.com. In fact, I think they still may. That is a dedicated mobile app. It still runs off the standard Twitter backend, but it's a completely different URL specifically for mobile devices. So the next type of mobile we have is a hybrid responsive. And what this means is that your website adapts to the screen it's on. So if we have our big, huge computer monitor that we have at work, that's at one resolution. And then when we move to our mobile devices, our viewing experience goes down to a much smaller resolution. So a responsive website adapts to the resolution of the screen. So essentially, as the screen size gets smaller, the website will kind of shrink and contort and contract so you get the best viewing experience at whatever screen size you have. So this is cool also in larger screens. So think you could build a website that not only renders and looks good on an iPhone or an Android device, but would also render and look good all the way up to large 50, 60, 70 plus inch LCD and plasma screen monitors. So you truly could build a dashboard, for instance, that could look proper on just about any screen resolution, and you could do that all from the same website. And that's what we would call responsive design or a hybrid mobile site. And we're going to be talking a lot about responsive design in this hybrid site, and we're going to be looking at this model quite extensively. So the last thing you can do is nothing at all. And that is actually a perfectly valid option. So doing nothing at all means leaving your site as is and allowing the different devices to just display them as they will. So just because you're doing nothing for mobile specifically doesn't mean it's not important that you don't make your website work properly. So that means using proper HTML, proper CSS, and adhering to some type of design consistency in your development. So nothing is an option when there's no money to do a mobile implementation, or when you can't justify the expense or the time to do the mobile site. So if you have no mobile users, if you don't have any analytics that say you get X percentage of users via mobile, maybe there is no need for a mobile device. Maybe the browser control is all you need for your website. And that's a perfectly valid option. Whoa. There we go. And that's a perfectly valid option, is having a browser control your mobile experience. So in this class, at least for the next few weeks, we're going to primarily be focusing on the hybrid responsive model, where we're going to build sites from the mobile, so from the the cell phone size all the way up to the monitor. And it's really a nice design exercise because there's differences between how users are going to interact with a mobile site and how they're going to interact with your site on a desktop. Obvious things like there's swipe and tap motions on a mobile, or even just scroll wheels. And in a full website, we have the ability to click and hover on a screen. And hover, for instance, how do you do a hover action on a mobile device? You don't want to display too much information in your hovers because you're going to lose all that information when you go to the mobile device. So things like that all have to be considered when you're designing mobile. And I think when you approach the design from a hybrid responsive way, you get a more consistent and a more simple website, because you're forced to always consider the mobile version of the site, and you can't help but make your final version simpler because of what you have to do down here at the mobile level. So it's a nice way to kind of constrain your design, and also a great way to ensure, well, not always ensure, but help ensure that you're going to get a more consistent and easy to use website. So we get a lot of these use cases where a hybrid responsive site is really the best option. And we handle these in CSS with what we call media queries. Now, media queries, man, my stylus is getting crazy. So media queries are CSS rules that are specific to a screen size. So for example, we could say apply the color red to a background, when the screen resolution is under 400 pixels. So what this allows us to do is create a bunch of different rules set up at different pixel levels. So depending on the type of mobile development you're doing, you may have one at 800 pixels, and then again at 700 pixels, and then one at 320 to start handling mobile devices, 360. So you can have as many of these as you want, and as you resize your browser, the screen will adapt to the size of, or your design will adapt to the size of the browser window. Because as the screen size shrinks, these media queries get called, and the CSS that lives inside of them gets executed. So think of these as big, giant if statements where the conditional is the pixel width of your monitor, and it allows us to do really cool things like build responsive websites. And we're going to talk about media queries a little bit today and also next week. So the final thing we're going to look at today are frameworks. And frameworks are designed to help make our development go a little bit faster. And especially when it comes to mobile, frameworks are really important. At least they are, in my opinion. So the two frameworks that we're going to be looking at this week are Bootstrap, which is made by the wonderful folks at Twitter, and Ratchet. And Ratchet is a new framework that I just found actually this week, and it allows really rapid prototyping of iPhone-like applications using HTML5. So not only is Ratchet a wonderful little side project, but it's also a really interesting use of HTML5 kind of as a framework markup language, and it really shows the power of how people are using HTML5 outside of the normal the web development sphere, kind of just doing plain HTML and CSS websites. So Ratchet is very cool, and we're going to take a look at that this week as well. So this is kind of mobile design and development in a nutshell, and just to recap, we typically see three types of mobile implementations: a dedicated with like an app store app or a mobile mobile domain. These are typically completely mobile optimized experiences. Then we have our responsive hybrid websites, where you'll get the same website whether you go to it from a mobile device or a desktop device, but depending on your screen resolution, you'll be given a different browsing and viewing experience, all from the same URL though. And then we also have websites that don't do anything for mobile, and they completely allow the browser to control the mobile experience of their site. And this works for smaller budget projects, or when a full mobile implementation is not necessary because you don't have many mobile users. We also accomplish our mobile design with modern CSS using media queries, which are basically if statements for screen size, which allow us to apply different CSS rules to screen sizes. And we're going to also accomplish a lot of this using frameworks, particularly Bootstrap and Ratchet, which will help simplify the media queries and also simplify the building of our mobile experiences. Because mobile can be tricky, there's a lot of testing that needs to be done, and when you use a framework, some of that pre-testing is baked in and will work right out of the box. So it allows you to get sites up a little bit quicker than if you were writing all the HTML and CSS from scratch. So that's mobile design and development in a nutshell, and I'll see you in the next video.